Surrounded by liars, how to stop half-truths, deception, and gaslighting from ruining your life. Welcome to Bookshare Audio, a place where truth is examined not through comfort, but through confrontation, where every reflection is a mirror held to the world we live in and the selves we prefer not to see. Today's journey is an exploration into deception, the invisible fabric that binds relationships, politics, and personal survival. It is an unfiltered walk into the psychology of lies, manipulation, and half-truths that dominate our interactions, institutions, and even our inner dialogue. Every human society builds itself upon an illusion of truth. Yet within that illusion, the act of lying operates as both a weapon and a shield. It is not merely a moral failure, but an adaptive response, a survival instinct refined by fear, ego, and necessity. We lie because the truth feels too raw, too inconvenient, or too destabilizing. The first idea we must confront is that dishonesty is not an external corruption that others bring into our lives. It is a mechanism that resides within all of us. The very people who condemn lies are often those who depend on them most deeply to preserve image, protect relationships, or maintain control. In our world, deception has become institutional. The modern era rewards performance over integrity, perception over substance, and persuasion over proof. We learn to manipulate language not to express truth, but to manage impressions. What once began as self-preservation has evolved into an entire social economy of deceit. We call it branding, marketing, public relations, politics. But underneath, it is still the same ancient practice, shaping reality to control belief. The challenge of living truthfully today is not merely moral, it is existential. To live honestly is to risk rejection, loss, and even survival. The psychology of lying reveals an uncomfortable duality, that humans are both deceivers and believers. We lie because we can, but we also believe because we must. The mind seeks coherence more than accuracy, comfort more than clarity. When a story fits our needs, we accept it without scrutiny. When it threatens our view of the world, we resist it, even when it's true. Thus, the modern liar thrives not because of cunning, but because of collective complicity. Society's willingness to prefer pleasant illusions over painful truths is the fertile soil from which deception grows. Consider how often we disguise lies as kindness. We say we're fine when we're not. We praise work we dislike, hide anger behind smiles, and call manipulation diplomacy. These lies lubricate social interaction. They help us coexist without conflict. Yet, over time, every small distortion compounds into a culture of self-betrayal. We begin to lose trust, not just in others, but in our own perception of reality. Once deception becomes habitual, truth becomes negotiable. What starts as a courtesy ends as corruption. But not all lies are born equal. Some stem from fear, others from power. A lie told to protect someone's feelings differs from a lie designed to exploit or control. Still, both alter reality. A protective lie shields one from pain, but deprives them of growth. A manipulative lie denies another's autonomy altogether. Both erode trust, the invisible thread that holds every human relationship together. Without trust, communication becomes performance, intimacy becomes strategy, and love becomes surveillance. In personal relationships, lying functions as emotional currency. Partners deceive each other in small ways to maintain harmony. Parents conceal truths to protect children. Friends withhold opinions to preserve closeness. Yet these acts of mercy often create distance. The truth that is hidden in kindness returns as confusion, resentment, or suspicion. Every unspoken word forms an emotional debt that demands repayment later, often through conflict or withdrawal. Honesty may wound in the short term, but dishonesty corrodes silently over time. The modern information landscape amplifies deception to unprecedented levels. What used to be whispered lies now echo across global networks. The digital age rewards exaggeration, outrage, and emotional manipulation. Fake news, political propaganda, curated social media lives, these are not anomalies, but reflections of our collective psychology. They feed our hunger for certainty in an uncertain world. Each click, share, and retweet is an act of belief, a micro-affirmation of what feels right, not what is true. In this ecosystem, deception is no longer a crime. It is a commodity. Attention has replaced accuracy as the measure of value. Lies are engineered to travel faster than facts because they flatter emotion. They confirm bias, trigger fear, or amplify belonging. Behind every viral post lies the understanding that humans are predictable in their need for validation. The architects of disinformation, from political operatives to media corporations, exploit this predictability with surgical precision. They don't need to convince you of their truth. They only need to exhaust you into uncertainty so that truth itself loses meaning. The manipulation of truth has evolved beyond personal deceit into systemic distortion. Statistics are framed to favor agendas. Science is twisted into ideology. News is curated not to inform, but to reinforce perspective. Even morality has become relative, a tool wielded selectively to justify convenience. This erosion of objective truth marks the age of post-reality, where acts are negotiable and sincerity is performative. The greatest danger here is not the liar who deceives, but the citizen who ceases to care whether what they believe is true. Yet deception does not only destroy, it also reveals. Lies expose the fractures in our values. They show what we fear losing and what we crave to protect. Every lie contains a confession, a hidden truth about what matters most to the liar. When a person lies for love, the truth is that they fear abandonment. When they lie for power, the truth is that they fear irrelevance. When they lie for comfort, the truth is that they fear change. To understand lies, therefore, is to understand human weakness. The more we deny our own capacity for deceit, the less we comprehend the motives of those who deceive us. One of the most profound insights in this reflection on dishonesty is that the line between truth and falsehood is not moral, but emotional. The liar does not merely distort facts, they rearrange feelings. They manipulate how others interpret reality by altering the emotional context of information. A good liar knows that belief is rarely shaped by evidence, but by desire. They appeal to hope, fear, guilt, or belonging, emotions that bypass critical thinking and anchor belief in feeling. Once emotion replaces logic, the distinction between true and false becomes irrelevant. What matters is resonance. This emotional architecture of lying explains why gaslighting, the deliberate distortion of reality to make someone doubt their sanity, is so effective. The gaslighter's weapon is not words, but confusion. They blur the boundary between perception and delusion, leaving their target dependent on them for clarity. Over time, the victim learns to distrust their memory, intuition, and judgment. This is how power sustains itself, not by force, but by redefining reality until submission feels voluntary. To resist manipulation, one must reclaim the right to one's perception. The first defense against deceit is awareness, not cynicism, but conscious skepticism. It begins with asking, who benefits from this belief? Whose fear or desire does this story serve? Awareness dismantles the emotional triggers that liars exploit. It restores autonomy in a world designed to keep us reactive. But awareness alone is not enough. Truth demands courage, the willingness to see what is painful, to confront what is inconvenient, and to accept what cannot be changed. In personal life, courage means asking hard questions. Why do I lie? What fear am I protecting? How many truths have I traded for comfort? Each of us sustains illusions to function, illusions about relationships, competence, morality, or security. To shatter these illusions is to experience disorientation. Yet only through that discomfort can integrity emerge. The measure of maturity is not how seldom we lie, but how swiftly we recognize when we do. The goal is not purity, but awareness, the ability to live honestly without self-deception. The anatomy of lies also reveals a social dimension. Culture defines what forms of dishonesty are acceptable. In societies that prize harmony, truth is often softened. In societies that prize achievement, truth is often exaggerated. Every culture creates moral permission for its preferred lies. Even institutions built on ideals of truth, religion, media, academia, are not exempt. They construct narratives that preserve order or authority. What they call moral teaching or political messaging often hides self-interest beneath righteousness. Thus, lies become the silent language of power. From a behavioral perspective, the act of lying is not just cognitive, but emotional labor. It requires memory, consistency, and emotional control. Chronic liars often excel in empathy, not in kindness, but in prediction. They read others' reactions, sense vulnerabilities, and adjust stories accordingly. This psychological dexterity is why manipulation often masquerades as charm. The liar learns to perform sincerity so well that even truth begins to sound suspicious in comparison. But truth itself has its own paradox. Absolute honesty can be cruel. It can wound without wisdom. Truth spoken without empathy becomes aggression, disguised as virtue. Therefore, ethical honesty requires balance, transparency guided by compassion. The goal is not to weaponize truth, but to align words with integrity. A wise truth is not merely factual, it is conscious of consequence. The difference between brutal honesty and responsible truth is awareness of timing, tone, and intention. The modern crisis of truth is also a crisis of responsibility. Technology has given everyone a platform but taken away accountability. The boundary between opinion and fact has blurred. People no longer ask, is it true, but does it benefit me to believe it? This utilitarian approach to truth erodes the moral fabric of discourse. When belief becomes a matter of convenience, integrity collapses. In such an environment, defending truth is no longer a passive virtue. It becomes an act of rebellion. Yet, hope lies in the same human complexity that enables deceit. Because we are capable of lying, we are also capable of self-correction. Awareness of falsehood awakens conscience. When a person chooses honesty despite cost, they reclaim power from fear. Truth, after all, is not comfortable. It is liberating. It dismantles illusion, but it also rebuilds character. Those who learn to live truthfully gain not perfection, but coherence. Their thoughts, words, and actions begin to align. This alignment breeds peace, not the peace of ignorance, but the calm of authenticity. The journey toward honesty begins with small acts, admitting mistakes, confronting excuses, resisting exaggeration. It grows with humility, the recognition that being wrong does not mean being worthless. The mature mind does not seek to be always right. It seeks to be real. It asks, "What am I afraid to see?" and dares to look. It replaces the hunger for validation with the discipline of clarity. In that space, truth ceases to be a weapon or a burden. It becomes freedom. To live truthfully in a deceptive world requires discernment. Not every truth must be spoken, but none should be denied. Silence is not always a lie, but silence that protects injustice becomes complicity. The ethics of truth demand constant self-examination, not just of what we say, but why we say it. Words are never neutral, they carry intention. The integrity of speech depends on the integrity of the speaker. There will always be liars, in power, in media, in relationships, but their existence matters less than our response. The danger is not that lies are told, but that they are tolerated. Every time we accept deceit for convenience, we reinforce its structure. Every time we stay silent for comfort, we surrender our moral agency. Truth, therefore, is not an ideal to admire, but a discipline to practice, daily, imperfectly, and with courage. In the end, understanding lies is not about learning to expose others. It is about confronting the liar within. The impulse to deceive begins in the fear of being seen. We lie to escape judgment, but judgment is the very mirror that reveals who we are. When we stop fearing that exposure, we begin to live authentically. To be truthful is not to be flawless. It is to be whole. It means no longer dividing ourselves between what is shown and what is hidden. The world will continue to spin in half-truths. Politicians will promise what they never intend to deliver. Corporations will dress manipulation as care. Lovers will hide doubts behind reassurances. But within this noise, the rare voice that speaks plainly becomes a light, not because it is perfect, but because it is real. The practice of truth is not glamorous, yet it is revolutionary. It restores meaning to words and dignity to the human spirit.